This is a short recorded presentation for those in the Mississippi soybean industry from Dominic Ricey, Extension Entomologist at North Carolina State University. North Carolina is similar to Mississippi in terms of soybean acreage, and the kudzu bug has been a very important emerging pest, and we hope that some of our experiences over the past years might help you as you go forward dealing with this pest. North Carolina was a lot like Mississippi, where we've found very few kudzu bugs, and it was rapidly expanding throughout our state. And I think this is the time in which you're in now, with kudzu bug being confirmed in 10 counties, and your first finds have been in soybeans this year. Kudzu bug was first found in the United States in 2009. It was initially restricted to a 9-county area in Georgia, but soon spread throughout half of Georgia and South Carolina, and just made it into the tip of North Carolina. And that's what you see pictured here in the county in green. Our first kudzu bug finds in North Carolina were in 2010. In 2011, kudzu bug had spread throughout over half the state, and I've represented those by yellow and blue colored counties in North Carolina. Counties that were in yellow in 2010 were where we had just found kudzu bug on kudzu. Counties that were blue in North Carolina were where we had found kudzu bug on not only kudzu but also on soybeans. And some of these were in very intensive soybean production regions, so areas like our southern Piedmont, the Sandhills region, and we had not yet found them in our most intensive soybean growing region, which was in eastern North Carolina. And so I think this will be similar to your Mississippi Delta. And I think Mississippi is similar to where North Carolina was in 2011. I think that's where you are this year. I think that you'll probably find kudzu bug throughout most of your state this year, and you'll probably see most of your problems on soybeans next year in 2014. But I think you will probably have some kudzu bugs in treatable situations this year. You can see where kudzu bug is spread now, and you can see how spotty it is in Mississippi, and think back to how spotty it was in North Carolina too. Now look at the colors there in blue. That's where kudzu bug was in 2011 in North Carolina, and you can see that it spread through about half the state. Interestingly, in 2012, most of those situations where we treated kudzu bug at threshold levels were where we had found kudzu bug in 2011. And so I think this year you'll probably find treatable situations in 2014 where you find kudzu bug this year. So probably your worst problems will be 2014, possibly 2015. North Carolina is a little different from Mississippi in that we have mostly determinate soybeans, but we're planting more and more indeterminates, and we do have some information from indeterminate soybeans. And kudzu bug seems to be pretty similar between indeterminates and determinates. There's only 2 generations a year, and this is the typical pattern of activity we see in North Carolina. We see a flush of adults in the spring. Those are coming from overwintering. They lay a batch of eggs. The nymphs develop into another batch of adults that move into soybeans again in July and August. Both of those situations are going to be early planted beans. In North Carolina, our earliest planted beans are probably the 1st of May, maybe some into April. Obviously, those are the ones that the kudzu bugs are going to find. Come July and August, they like those early planted beans again. So we see our second flush of nymphs in August, and I think that's probably where you're going to have your most problems. Come late July and early August, you're going to see this influx of adults into some of your soybean fields, and you're going to want to treat the nymphs that develop from those populations. We have some preliminary thresholds for seedling soybeans. These absolutely will change. They're not based on very much information, but we think that you should treat seedling soybeans at 5 bugs per plant. Now notice I didn't say 5 bugs per field. Walk out to the field edge and see 5 bugs. It's very important that we average those numbers across the field. We know that kudzu bug is really congregated in higher densities along the edge of the field. So for scouting, we recommend that you scout at least 50 feet from the field edge. If you're concerned about those, treat them as a border spray. Really look into the interior of those fields. Kudzu bug likes to stack up and down on certain plants and not on others. So here for our scouting of our seedling soybeans, we recommend peeling back the plant and counting the adults or nymphs up and down the stem. You notice that these 5 plants are really heavily infested with kudzu bug adults. But take a look at the kudzu bugs on the plants next to them. There might be 1 on that plant there. This is the typical pattern of infestation we see in the field, where some places are really heavily infested and other places are not. So to make that decision for treatment, you really need to average across the field. We think that probably neighboring plants are able to compensate for any loss caused by a heavily infested plant. As soon as you can, you need to switch to the sweep net for sampling. Now we know the sweep net has some certain characteristics about it. Tends to undersample nymphs. That's okay, our thresholds are calibrated for that. Your thresholds in Mississippi are probably going to be based on our information. I don't know where your entomologists are going to set them at, but I'm guessing they're going to use the 1 nymph per sweep threshold. And we think that if you trait based on 1 nymph per sweep, you can probably get away with a single spray. It's going to kill nymphs that are out there, and then you can probably also preserve yield. And so that's going to be very important to use that sweep net. And the reason why I want you to use the sweep net is because I want you to avoid this situation here. This is injury resulting from kudzu bug. Looks a lot like herbicide injury. That's caused from those little nymphs feeding on the stem. So this is a situation I found in July. I peeled back the canopy, found large nymphs up and down the stems of the soybean plants. And you notice the injury that you see from those kudzu bugs there. This is where I think we should be treating kudzu bugs at. These are small nymphs. They have not yet caused injury on the soybean plants, and they're going to be very susceptible to all those insecticides. So we're going to preserve yield, kill all of our insects, and treat everything that's out there. These are very difficult to see with visual sampling. That's why we're recommending using the sweep net. So in conclusion, make sure you scout before you treat. Switch to the sweep net as soon as you can. Use the recommended thresholds from your extension entomologist, and really wait for that migration to take place. This insect is a very slow mover. It's slow to move into the fields. It's slow for its population to develop. It's slow to cause injury to those soybeans. It's not a velvet bean caterpillar. It's not a soybean looper. It's something that you really need to scout and make a careful, calculated decision, or else you'll have to go back in and spray again. So I hope that what I've presented today has been helpful, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you.